Hello everybody, welcome to my video. This is a beginning of a new series of videos, which is one of the ways that the Peterborough Symphony Orchestra and I are reaching out to you during this period of COVID isolation. Today we're going to be looking at Brahms' magnificent Symphony No. 1. This symphony will certainly be on most people's lists as one of the great works, the great symphonies of all time. I've chosen this work to begin this series of vlogs since it's one of the pieces that we had planned to play for you in concert as soon as we can come back to perform at Showplace, whenever that's going to be possible in the future. So first, a little bit of background. Johannes Brahms was born in the port city of Hamburg in northern Germany in the year 1833. His father was a double bass player and his mother was a seamstress. They were quite poor. Brahms showed very early talent as a pianist and studied very diligently, and then because the parents needed some extra help with making money, he went out and played as much as he could to earn to do freelance work, basically, as a fairly young person, as a young teenager. One of the places where he played a lot was in the port area of St. Pauli, where there are lots of brothels. That's where he played. He played for the sailors, he played for the prostitutes. He was teased, treated badly. He was quite slight, young looking, and that really put him off a lot of things. That gave him some issues. Let's leave it at that. But one of the big things that did was it forced his hand at really trying to find a way to get out of that city, to go off on his own. And so as a young accompanist, he became, while he left and started working with several violinists, a couple of them very famously. One of the most famous ones was Joseph Joachim, which was a very important choice for him because Joachim knew everybody, and he was able to help Brahms, give him an introduction to meet the most one of the most famous composers of the day, Robert Schumann, which he did. Brahms went on foot to Dusseldorf, met Schumann. Schumann was himself extremely influential because he was also a famous writer on music and wrote an article about Brahms saying that here was the young talent, the hope for the future, the person who was going to take up the mantle of Beethoven in the form of the symphony and take it forward. Now, why would he say something like this? Why would it be important to find the next symphonist? It was because by this point, most people considered the symphony to be a form that was dead. And really, opera, music drama, Wagner, also tone poems, Liszt, and also the music of Berlioz, the music of the future, did not really concern the symphony. The symphony was considered to be something that was for Mozart, for Haydn, and Beethoven. Beethoven took it as far as anybody could imagine with the Ninth Symphony, written in 1824. So you can imagine the enormous pressure that Brahms must have felt as a young composer. He worked on this symphony for more than 20 years. It was premiered finally in 1876. It had great success, but you can imagine how difficult this must have been. In fact, he said, for a symphonist to feel that giant walking behind you every step of the way is almost unbearable. Let's take a look at this great, great symphony. One of the really remarkable elements of this symphony is how it begins. Up until this time, symphonies really had one basic idea to begin them. In other words, here, right, that's Mozart, or here's Haydn. This is his final symphony, Haydn's number 104. Or, of course, oh, here's another one. right, Beethoven's Fifth, or if you want to take a look at the Ninth. Right? Very much about one thing. It's some accompaniment and music. Now, Brahms does this very differently. He takes three elements and puts them together. And he starts with an ostinato, a repeated pattern of eighth notes in the bass instruments. Now on top of this, he takes the middle instruments and also the woodwinds, and it gives this beautiful idea. It's falling. And then on top of that, he puts the violins in octaves, and it rises. Goes up, keeps going. And so when he puts those three elements together, it is astonishing. It really makes me think back to one of those structures. It's very much Baroque. It's when it becomes contrapuntal. It's influenced by the music of J.S. Bach. It feels to me like the beginning of the St. Matthew Passion. It's got that feeling of momentum, a feeling of tragedy, and a feeling of hope at the same time. It's really something that you can never forget. I never could, ever since the first time I heard it. There are four movements to this symphony. The two middle movements are shorter. They feel like a little bit of relaxation. The final movement is huge, and it's in a way modeled on the final movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. This entire symphony is going from darkness to light. It goes from C minor to C major. And even the theme, the main theme of the final movement, has been seen to be very similar to the main theme, the Ode to Joy from Beethoven's Ninth. You know, it's etc., etc. In fact, Brahms once said, "Any jackass can see that." You know, and so that's the main theme, and it comes back triumphantly after being worked out. And there's also a very important chorale, which seems to have almost religious significance to it. It first makes its entrance in the trombones and the bassoons. It goes like this. And it also binds the whole movement together, and of course these contrasting elements contribute to the drama. But also the way that the movement begins. It begins very slowly, and it's very stormy, it's very misty, and finally the thing I think that really struck me the first time I ever heard it, and it continues to, is when this all clears out, there's a melody that's given to the principal horn, to the first horn. This is actually a melody that Brahms heard when he was on one of his many trips on vacation in Switzerland. It was played by an Alp horn, and it goes like this. Of course, it's put into the horn, and it has this feeling of nature, particularly with the entire orchestra just hushed. You know, the basses are down here, and those are the strings up there. You know, it's an amazing moment. It's an amazing symphony. It needs to be listened to, and I hope that you enjoy listening to it. And I hope you've enjoyed this as well. If you've liked it, please press a like down below, And I'll see you next time with my next vlog about the next piece. Until then, goodbye.